Love you.
Love you.
Welcome, everybody, once again to another edition of our podcast. For those who believe, for all the sons and daughters of the Casa and then some. And today I'm so honored and happy to have with me, all of us together, Tricia Ryan, known as Tricia. And I would want to just say my middle name is Patricia. So we're connected on a soul level and daughters of the Casa. And we've come together in this podcast just to resonate with each other now in 2025, which is a different world than it has been. It's moving very fast now. And this is to bring all the sons and daughters together and to really have this wonderful connection with our group consciousness, our Casa family, which we're all part of. And we have a lot in common. The common thread running to us all is the words of Dom Ignacio, who I always have with me here. You know, his picture here from the Casa. He's with us to love and to serve in all things for the greater glory of God. And it's a very auspicious day today because the Pope has just been buried, and they had the ceremony today, and he was a Jesuit. So his favorite saint was Saint Ignatius of Loyola. And this is amazing how everything is connected, you know. And in gratitude to João de Dias for bringing us all together and saying yes to his mission, because without him, we wouldn't have come to the Casa and we wouldn't be talking today and we wouldn't have reconnected with our spiritual family. And I wanted to honor you, Trish, because I really am happy that you agreed to do this because we met each other recently in Ireland and you are now in Ireland and you have a lovely Irish name. And you were also based in France. So we're an international family. And we're just going to shoot the breeze and have a chat about how you came to find out about the Casa, what brought you here, and also how it changed you and us. All of us have been fundamentally changed enormously by our journeys to the Casa and our connection with the Casa, and how we are feeling about this energy in 2025, how the Casa has supported us right through until now and will continue to support us because our spiritual paths have been opened by this miraculous healing portal here in Abidjania, which is just down the road here. And I've been sitting in the current this week and the energy has never been higher. I think we've shifted dimensions, definitely here. I can feel it. And out in the world, things have changed. There are portals also of very high energy. But we need to really stay grounded and connected and in the heart center. So Tricia, let us know how you, my beautiful sister, happen to come to the Casa and be here today chatting to me.
Okay. I'm having trouble because I'm so excited to be with you that I need to
Great.
calm down.
Break for it.
Anyway, well, the beginning of it was that a friend, I was living on a tropical island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, working as a Gestalt therapist and doing quite nicely, thank you, I thought. And then a friend came to see me, a young man who had HIV at the time. And he came into my apartment, small apartment on this island one evening, and he said, look, I need your help. I don't know how to do the internet, but I've heard about this place in Brazil and I want to go because of his physical stuff. And so I say, well, I'm hopeless on the internet. I haven't got a clue, you know, but we can look together to get linked up to somebody, I don't know who. And do you know what? We were sitting, I can still feel it, I get the shiver. We were sitting up looking at my laptop in this tiny room in this apartment, and we started tuning in to the link, and the whole room became filled with this energy.
Wow.
And I wasn't into energies at all. I was a psychologist, you know, very sort of, I thought, grounded psychologist. So I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But it filled the room, and it was like soft, gentle, loving love.
Wow.
And I don't even
Great.
know if, can't remember whether the guy, actually picked up on it. But anyway, he left, and then I forgot was getting on with my life. And then the next thing that happened was my daughters, I've got two adult daughters, who came over to this island for ostensibly a beautiful holiday together with their mother.
Mhm.
And the whole thing blew up when they came. It was very unexpected for me. It was a shock. And they kind of exploded with all their grievances about the bad mother that I was.
Oh, imagine it all came
This
up.
because of that, mainly because I had left the marriage, and also I went off looking for God, and they couldn't even hear such a thing, you
Oh,
know.
what a shame.
So
Yeah.
it was very unexpected. And when they left, they closed the door saying, "You will never see us again."
Oh,
And I went into a kind of, I would say, anesthetic, you know, something happens where you just, it doesn't feel, it feels surreal.
yeah,
But
dormant, maybe, like a
yeah, it just feels
numbness.
like like it's a state of shock, I suppose, where I couldn't really feel. I knew that had all happened, but it felt a bit like a strange film or something. But
Well,
they definitely were clear that, they'd done with me, and they were going back to their father in France. And that was the end of that. And they left very quickly. They got their father to come and pick them up at the airport, and they left very quickly. So
oh,
it was quite, a surprise. So
traumatic.
then I carried on working for a bit, and then I started to have thoughts like, what is this? If I'm helping people in my practice as a psychotherapist and my own family, it doesn't make any sense. And
Mm.
it felt very painful as well.
Oh,
Obviously
God,
I loved my two
sorry.
daughters. And so the next thing was, another guy came to see me who was a therapist friend. And he walked into my place, and it was like 3 weeks after my daughters had left, and I was still in this weird. And he came in holding a DVD, and he said, "I've got something for you." And I said to him, "If it's anything spiritual, you can off, because I've had enough." And he was, you see, this is the thing about the entities. His guidance was, I think he just spontaneously said, "I'll put it up on your shelf. And when you're ready, you can look."
Bye.
So I put it up on the shelf with my friends' DVDs that I used to watch after a day's work to lighten up back in those
Oh,
days. The friends thing.
yeah, lovely.
Uh, Sometime, I think it was about 3 weeks, but the time thing's never quite clear. One evening, something said, "Stick it on your," in those days you had a drawer on your laptop, you put
That's
the
right.
DVD. So I put the DVD in, and what came up was a black and white film of Joao, the medium, in
Mm.
the Casa. And there was an oldish man in a wheelchair, a Brazilian man, quite, a bit unkempt, a bit ordinary,
Mm.
an ordinary Brazilian guy, probably 60s or so, in the chair. And so the work that they were doing with Dorothy Cook was there at the
Yes,
time,
lovely,
and
Dorothy.
the mediums. And so Joao just simply said to this man with this very strong, booming voice, "Stand up." And I'm watching this thing. I couldn't believe it, because I've never seen anything like that ever.
No.
Anyway, to cut the long story a bit shorter, he just kept insisting, "Stand up, stand up." And the man was crying and saying, I can't, it's impossible." So the mediums around, they sort of helped him to stand up at
Yeah,
first.
as
And
you
when
do.
he was standing, he was still sobbing, this man. And Joao said, "Walk. 1, 2, 1, 2," in Portuguese. Well, of course, you could sort of
Yes.
get that. And this man was so, I can't do it. He walked, and I've still got the shiver when I say it.
Oh my
Ever so
God.
slowly, this guy left the wheelchair and started to walk. And he was sobbing, and it was the man's sobbing that touched my heart the most.
Exactly.
This
It's
man's sobbing that
miraculous.
it was so, words would never have done it, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, Joao had his hand at the back of the man, not touching him, just the energy at the lower back, saying, "Walk, 1, 2, 1, 2." And the man walked across the
Yeah.
floor
As
over to the side where we used to go. And that was it. And it's like it burst my heart open. And I didn't relate it to that first experience of that energy in the room when my first friend was asking me about the Casa thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that. I had this, it's like a laser beam guidance. I'm to go there. I'm to go there.
You
I'm to
have to
go there.
come. You were called
Which
here.
was the last thing that the little person wanted, because I
Yeah.
don't like travel. I don't like travel alone. I don't like long, long thingy-majigsies alone, especially when I don't know the languages and the country and all of that.
Yes, exactly.
So I would say that was the biggest miracle, was that that therapist brought that DVD in.
So what
So
year did you get here? What you came after that, but what year was it that you first came here?
no idea. I think I can't remember, but it would be around 2006, something like that.
Yeah, I remember meeting you here. I was so excited because you're so Irish, and I was just felt an immediate connection with you.
It was
Here
immediate.
in Abidjan, it was like a reunion. It was like I had known you my whole life for lifetime.
Yes, yes,
I mean,
yes,
this is
yes,
what I got a lot here in Abidjan, but
yes,
particularly with you, not only because of your name, Tricia Ryan. I mean, you can't get much more Irish than that. But there was this sense of like we had known each other eternally, that we were sisters from way back or family, and that's a very hard thing to explain to people who don't know about the connections of the Casa. I think we're all called here for different reasons. And when I met you, there was an instant,
I
like,
can remember.
yeah,
I'd come into
it
that
was instant.
cafe. I came into that cafe all by myself, feeling such, because sometimes there was a kind of loneliness in Abidjan, but I'll talk about that more. But coming into that cafe, and I think you were in the kitchen with your back to me. As soon as you turn around, we didn't say anything. We didn't, it was so, it was so obvious. There was something there. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And that connection without words even was there. And it's there now. And I recently met you, which is
Ah,
beautiful. And we reconnected like we just never were apart. We just
there was
picked
no
up where we left
timeline.
off 10, maybe 12 years later. I'm not sure how when was the last time you were here. But how many times did you come to
Well, I
Abidjan?
think it's more
Generally?
like 15 years.
Wow. Because you came, how many times did you come here?
Oh, okay. So what happened was I'd come over that first time with the broke. I just went to see the entity for the first time, not really believing any of it. I just had this,
Me too.
the intellect couldn't make anything of it, but the heart felt such recognition. And so I saw the entity for the first time, not having any idea. But as soon as I stepped into the casa, I felt that strange power, I would say again,
Love.
a very reverent power. And when I saw him, I only remember ever seeing that day, whichever entity it was, I'm not sure, but these huge eyes that looked like two lakes. I've
Wow.
always just remembered that looking at me, and I thought, those eyes have seen everything about me, really. And the only thing that he threw back from through the translator was, "You're coming back from a very, very long way away," which in the beginning I could only half understand, that my heart was so broken and all the traumas of lives and maybe lives. I was arriving in this place to get healing, and he was saying, you've come back from a long, long way. So
Beautiful.
that was the beginning of it. Then I worked there for the 3 months. It was always 3 months, wasn't it? So I
Yeah.
did my 3 months really sitting in furlong on the terrace where the flowers and the hummingbirds were,
Oh,
sitting on that terrace in furlong, so quiet
still
every day,
there.
just crying, writing letters to my daughters, love letters to my daughters.
Yeah.
I mean, real love, not just
Yeah.
deep, how sorry I was for the past and all of that. So these letter writing was really talking to God, I would say, in hindsight.
Absolutely.
Entities and God, Saint Ignatius. Yes. Not in that order, but God at the top.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, I came back, and when I came back, I knew I wanted to go back again. So to answer your question, I think I went back one more time for me, which was when I had the biggest physical miracle was that from birth, I had this atopic eczema all over me. And it used to flare up all the time. And even as a professional therapist, sometimes I'd have to kind of try to hide it on my face because I was ashamed, to be a professional with all this eczema. But I had it all over my body, and it was debilitating and painful and itchy, and it would come and go. So on that second visit, I went to see the entity, and I said, I know exactly the words I said. Please take this away once and for all. I don't need it anymore.
Oh.
I don't think I was seeing you so much then. I was in Furlong, and I went back to my room with the herbs and the everything
Yes.
going
Yeah.
on. And I got this eczema crisis that I had never had in my life. And in the room was a tiny little square mirror, ever so small, that they put up for people to look in, but because I'm short, it was like I could hardly see. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself, which is a lovely metaphor. There was no Tricia. It was like a red burnt face. I couldn't see my eyes. It was all over.
Oh.
Worst ever, ever, ever.
It usually
And
gets worse before it was a healing crisis, I'd say.
well, that's the thing, because the thing was, it was interesting about the healing spiritually, because when I saw this and I felt so ugly and ashamed and
Oh,
small, and I've done something wrong and all of this, I didn't want to go out of the room, and I didn't for a while. And the other thing that came up in my thoughts was, oh, maybe it's all a hoax. Maybe he's messed me up and I'll never be able
disbelief.
to get rid of
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah,
didn't have faith in the entities enough. I
exactly.
doubted, and that made me even more miserable.
You're
But
just human. Yeah, but
by
again,
about the third day, I was so hungry because there was no food in. They didn't do food there at the time, and it was like, it's so funny how we are in our bodies. Because I thought, I'm hungry. I just want to go to Fruities. I needed to get out, get some food, and I went out feeling so unworthy. But you
oh,
can't hide your face, really. And
yeah.
when I stepped to Fruities, I didn't want to look at anybody. I was so ashamed. And I
Wow.
felt so like almost dirty, and I'd messed everything up. And these French people were sitting at a table, and I always say I don't like the French, but anyway, these French people, like a group of them, and they just looked at me and said hi, nothing else.
Yeah,
They said
great.
hi, probably, I don't know, if maybe in French, and I go, oh, it was so surprised, say, oh, you're French, because I didn't know French people went there, see. So they absolutely gave me the agendered, unconditional love I needed to just accept me. They didn't even say what's going on. They just said, come and sit with us, have a cup
Oh,
of
that's
coffee.
so lovely. That's what Abidjan is about. People accepting
That's
each other
exactly one
all
of the
over the
things.
world, one family. How can I help you? And even by sitting talking to people, we learn so much about ourselves and them. And everybody is accepted. It's
It was
unconditional
so
love.
healing. It was like, oh my God, I'm making all this fuss about a body, but this wasn't anything to do with the body, it was the heart. So
Yeah,
then they said, look, because at the time you couldn't get medication or anything when I was there then. You couldn't just go and see a doctor and get some
yeah.
kind of, you know. So they said, look, we're going to the waterfall. We'll bring you back some water. And the woman, the French woman, she said, you can just dab it on and it'll heal. And it took 3 weeks.
Yes.
And it was very gradual. And gradually it all disappeared. And my skin looked younger than before the whole thing.
Wow.
And I got my faith back because it just like when you switch a light down really low and it gradually goes off, all of it disappeared. No medication, just the water from the
The
Cachoeira.
waterfall. Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
I've never had it back. I had said to him once and for all, and that's what they did. I have never, after, I was nearly 60 years old, actually, 55 or something, and I've had it all my life and gone.
What a
So
miracle
that's
you had.
my main physical miracle.
Yes, this is beautiful.
Even when I thought, I think this bloke's, I think I'm being had, it's a hoax. Even when I doubted and
Yeah,
got quite doubt thoughts,
of
it's still.
course. You're just human.
So that was that. So then I probably met you around about that time. I was there each time. It was a 3 month thing because of the visa,
Yeah.
and um, And then I got this prompt before I left to go and ask if I could take people there.
Yeah,
Because
groups of
this
people.
thing, what it is, you know more than anybody, that when you receive something out of this world that's so hard to even put into words, you want to
Yeah,
share it.
of
You want to
course you
help.
do. Love and
So
service.
that's what happened. I asked and they said, yes, I could do that. So then I went back to France. Um, I left the tropical island. It was all guidance. I left the tropical island, went back to France, and I started doing what they call little talks on. Oh, and the other thing was the film called Healing had come out.
That's right.
So
Yes.
I started giving these talks in friends' houses where I would just show the film and then talk about my experience. There was nothing about trying to get people because I didn't do it for money anyway. I never did it for money. But the
Yes.
thing was, what was the thing? Oh, every time I do these little talks in somebody's room, the whole room filled up with that same energy, the one
Of
I told you about
course.
at the very
The
beginning.
spirits and
And
the
people would be almost in tears saying it just sounds so amazing. So that's how the groups came. People felt the thing and
and
then
were
they said,
called
we
to go
want to
to
go.
you. And I remember you having groups, not very large groups, because you were very attentive to the people
Yeah.
you brought. It was more like a family gathering than actually
I had about
a
10
group.
people each time, which was more than enough because everything, when people were there, they'd lost all of their comfort zone business.
And a lot of
Um,
stuff comes
they
up.
needed somebody to be quite sort of caring and around and to listen. They needed so much to have somebody to listen to
Exactly.
them every day about what was coming up for them.
And so
So
much stuff comes up when you decide to come here. All your stuff bubbles to the surface, and some of it's not pretty. And yeah, you really need to be compassionate to bring people here. So well done on saying yes to bringing people to have a journey. Not an easy journey because everybody's got their own hardships and their karma as well. So you're dealing with a lot of really deep, intense stuff that is once in a lifetime, really, because we're here to help each other, but a lot of people are not in service and they don't listen to each other, which is a beautiful reminder. Silent and listen have the same letters. And you guided them on the path towards their liberation from suffering. So this is a beautiful,
yeah,
all the guides who came from that place of compassion experienced
yeah,
extraordinary miracles within their groups and for themselves. I mean, your life shifted a lot, uh, enormously, or changed completely by coming to Abidjania. I mean, you
yeah,
really
yeah.
changed. I could
And
see a lot
there
of
is,
changes in you every time I met you here. You know,
oh, that's funny because I remember I'd come and see you and I'd say, they're driving me mad. I can't cope. They want so much
yeah,
attention and everything. And you just say, Tricia, it's fine. Don't worry.
yeah, that you have nothing but unseen help, so much help, much more than we'd ever imagined. God loves us and sends all the helpers we need, but we forget that when we're in the human body. And we have
Yeah.
so much now around us, like right here together, we have all of
And
our.
it never ever ends. When we met in Dublin the other day, it was another sign, more than a sign, saying, you see, this love never goes anywhere. It can't. It's not worldly love. It's the agape. It's the unconditional love. It can't go anywhere. And one of my main miracles, I've got two main miracles I'd love to share, and the rest will be just if we have time. I had come on one of the trips. I'm not sure which one, but it doesn't really matter. And I was walking around one day in the sun as we do between sessions, just walking. And I go past one of the posadas called Angeles or something with a big green, there's a green bit where
Yes,
you walk
just
past.
ended.
And there was this American woman sitting in a deck chair in the sun, and she was meditating. And I just was walking by looking at the flowers, and I'm captivated by her facial expression, which was such peace. I think I'd never seen a face just with such peace on it, with her eyes closed. And then I see on the ground this big fat blue book, very big heavy book. And so my little mind says, "Ooh, I wonder what that book is. It seems to be doing her good." So I asked her. It was so stupid. I said, "Excuse me." And she said, "Yeah." And I say, "Well, can you tell me what that book is? Because you look so peaceful." And she said, "It's called A Course in Miracles." And I go, "What's it about?" And I think, oh, for God's sake, Tricia, but that's how the innocence of this question
Of
brought about
course,
my
you
big
didn't know.
miracle, which was and it's amazing because she just looked at me so kindly, not at all cynical or anything, and she said, "I can't tell you." So then I walked on, totally forgot all about that completely. I think I told you this in Dublin, but it's so amazing for me that then I got my plane back to Paris to meet some other friends in the center of Paris, French, all French people. They picked me up at the airport from Brazil, take me back to their apartments. And this guy that was part of that group walks into the room with his hand out like this. Guess what was on it? I still get the shivers. It
Oh,
was A Course in Miracles. And I go, "Oh my God, I saw that book in Brazil. I
wow.
can't believe it." And it was in English in the middle of France, in Paris. It was an English copy. So he said, "It's for you. I know it's for you." And I say, "But how do you know?"
We're not to
Uh,
question why, but
Anyway, the thing was he'd given me this book, and then I got my plane back to my tropical island with the book in the suitcase, even though it weighed like 5 kilos, and
oh,
you know, something. This is how the entities work. We don't know what anything is for or why, but something was saying, "Don't leave it behind." It would have been so easy to say to my friend, "You know what? I'm not taking that. I've only got a bit of space, and it's heavy. You keep it." But no, something deeper was saying, "Get that book back home with you." So I used to sit every morning reading it, thinking, "I don't like this. I don't like this book. I can't read this." But I stuck. Something else kept me going with it. And I gradually started to see what it was really saying. And that was the gift of the entities in Abadiania, because that kind of, how do you say that word in English? Let me think. It was the
catalyst.
crystallization of how my whole life would change and all my thinking would change, because the course is only teaching what we experienced at the Casa. It's only
Yes,
teaching with the words and the poetry. It's very beautiful, and the teaching. It's come through as a channeling, and it's only really talking about non-judgment, unconditional love, and that we are all ultimately innocent. Ultimately, we have to undo a lot of stuff, but we are ultimately innocent. So that book changed my life. And then I started to work with that. I gave up being a psychotherapist to become a spiritual counselor,
yes,
working with the work from the Casa. It was all coming from Saint Ignatius. It really was. So
lovely.
that was an amazing miracle. And I got to go to Montserrat subsequently through my work with the course. And I went there with a group of friends, and I was all, how I can be, what I'm like. And
I know.
we went up to the level of where Saint Ignatius's room or whatever. I started to cry, just cry these
The
tears.
serrated mountain made by angels. It's an amazing place. It's amazing.
And what I love to share, for anybody is that, as I told you, when I first got the guy popping around to see me to look for the Casa on my computer, I
Yes.
knew nothing of energies or feeling the true heart. I knew nothing about that. I was a right old intellectual.
Yes, of course, as
That's
we
what it was.
all are or were.
Exactly, exactly. Anyway, the other miracle I would just mention, because somebody wanted to put it in a book, and I don't know if it got in the book, but I'd come back from Abadiania, and I was back on my tropical island before I left. And I'd gone somewhere to listen to this very lovely guy talking about the Christ energy on the island, because there were lots of different things like that going on this little island.
Lovely.
And I had come back, and this woman who lived right on the beach that I didn't know, she'd been on the same workshop. And she said, "Stay overnight and we'll go and meditate as the sun comes up."
Wow.
The next morning, it was a Monday morning. So that's what happened. And we went to the beach like at 4 a.m. and it's just amazingly beautiful. We did all that, and then we went for a swim. Then we came out of the water and she said, I'm going to go back in and make breakfast. And then we can, do that. And I said to her, well, I'll just have one more swim because it's so lovely. And she went back to the house and there was nobody. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning on a beach, nothing to do with tourism or anything. A wild beach, quite ordinary with sort of black sand and all of that. And this is my maybe main miracle, I don't know, but I'd gone back into the water and I was so happy going out, swimming out, thinking, oh, it's so lovely to be welcome somewhere. And she's making breakfast, and it was all in that energy of the Jesus thing from the day before. And then I turned around to swim back, and it was like a shock because I'd been carried out. I'd been
Oh,
carried right out on this beach where there was nobody, no sign of any human life
dear.
whatsoever. So I start to try to swim back in, but very quickly I just knew I'll never get back in there. And there was nobody. She'd gone back to the house. There was nobody. And so it's so weird because that energy came back again. An energy of just, I can't explain it with words, but like this is happening and it doesn't matter. It's okay.
Wow.
But I kind of thought I'm going to die. I know that. And I didn't feel the fear, but I started to talk to the entities.
Yeah, come
I
on.
did.
Throw me a rope.
I'm saying, I'm saying, look, I don't know, maybe this is what's to be, and okay, I'm okay with it, but I'm very afraid of when the water first goes into the lungs. I am.
Yeah.
And
It's supposed to be a lovely way to go, though. Drowning is supposed to be
I
really
don't know, because
angelic.
I think it was, I don't know. Anyway, the thing was the second part of my prayer, and that makes me laugh because my father was a great gambler, my Irish father. I said, but if you get me out of here, I promise that I'll devote my life to God, the Casa, Jesus, the Course in Miracles. It's a
Yes.
promise. And then I'm just kind of floating. I didn't even try to swim anymore. I'm just floating. And on the beach, so far away, honestly, I promise it was a long, long way away that you could hardly really see. I suddenly see like a young man running across the beach with
Oh,
a board under his arm. And my thought was he won't have even seen me because he was running diagonally like that.
yes.
But I heard, and I've got shivers again. He's going to come and get me. And he did. He went all the way round out beyond me because he knew the currents, I suppose. Came back, and the only thing he said was, put your hands on the board. The only words, put your hands on the board.
Your savior.
He started to swim me in, and it all felt a bit sort of dreamy and surreal. But when we got to the beach, I love this story because I often think now this is what we do. It was like the mind came back in with, how am I going to thank him? What can I give him? What can I tell him? I want to give him money or something. You saved my life, all that shit. And when we got to the sand, I kind of fell on because I'd been out for a long time and actually
Tired.
there was some exhaustion. So I fell onto the sand face down. But those thoughts went immediately and I turned around to say all that crap to him. Nobody was there. Nobody had seen anybody. And the woman making breakfast had just come back and she had seen nobody. And the bit I forgot was that guy, as we were coming back in and we got closer and I'd got a little bit of energy back, I just looked at him and he'd got these blue, penetrating, like the blue butterflies,
Oh my
eyes.
God.
And I said, what's your name? And he said, Christopher.
Christ.
And when we got to the beach, he'd gone.
That's incredible
So,
to know that story. And I've got goosebumps now too.
oh my
It's
God.
the sign of truth. And the Christ energy. I mean, you were meant to be saved for this work that you're doing now. That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that because it puts your belief back in something bigger than us, which is what the Casa is all about. I mean, there's a higher dimension, and we're just travelers here on earth, and our spirits are eternal. So it wasn't your time to go, and you surrendered into it, which is what Dom Ignacio always tells us to surrender. Easier said than done, because we're always holding on. Resistance is futile, but we don't hear that when we're in the middle of a crisis. So you just let go, and then God sent you a savior, Christ energy, the consciousness.
It was so weird. It was so weird that this guy just seemed to dematerialize, in fact.
Yeah, and it happens on Earth, and people, it's hard. It takes that for us to believe that there is something bigger than just this planet, this three-dimensional material world that we're so attached to, and the bodies we're so attached to. It takes an absolute miracle of manifestation like that to help us to regain our faith and to also know that there's a parallel universe that's so much more vibrant than this one that we're on. I mean, many people have had past life experiences that I have met through the Casa, have said that the colors are so much more vibrant on the other side, and there's just this feeling of baselessness and love, and energetically it's so high, the vibration, that you're so at peace and happiness and just liberation from suffering. And and they come back, and it's light, so much light, there's so much. And the ancestors are there waiting for us too, and they're all preparing the way for us when we reunite. But then, we have to come back to Earth if we choose. And sometimes I don't even, I'm looking up and I'm like, really? Did we choose this? Why? And we did choose to come back here. I mean, I was probably first in the line going, me first, I'm going back to Earth, and now when I'm down here, sometimes I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Exactly. That's very true for me too. This thing about wanting to go and then suddenly thinking, ooh, really?
Yeah, and then what is my mission? But just to sit in loving kindness and to serve each other and to love is what we're here to do. And we are part of the same essence, which is love. And that's why I think the Casa family is so important, because we've experienced this love together here and in different parts of the world. I mean, when I met you in Dublin recently, it was the Casa energy that was just floating around us, within us, and it was an integral part of our meeting. It was just emerging.
And I love that you say that, because it wasn't like I came to see Grainne and I'll think about connecting to the entities and I'll think about calling in and getting nothing. I didn't have any of that. I was just in this state of joy, real joy, all the way there.
Yeah, we were like children,
We were kind of shrouded in this field of energy.
Yeah, and we didn't have to be praying and, be holy. I mean, I was brought up Catholic, and, we always had to be in a state of grace and holiness and praying. And of course, we were all going to hell in a handbasket, and sins. And so, everything is a prayer, our lives are a prayer. And we were just like two children, and everything just flowed so lovingly and so organically that there was no effort, only just the love between us as a family.
There was no agenda, was there? It was just floating from one little experience to the other.
And weren't even in Abidjan. You don't need to be in Abidjan to feel this. It is just deep, deep connection on a soul level. And it's like John O'Donoghue, Anam Cara, our soul friends. We are part of the soul family. We're all interconnected, all part of the oneness. And if we only realize this on the planet right now, particularly, this is a teaching of the Casa and of all of the great, the Christ, the Buddha, Krishna, Allah. They're all teachers of love. Their religion is love. And if we only just realize this, there would be no more war or conflict, and we would never be separate. We're not separate. We're all joined together. So this is an amazing teaching. And I kept having these God moments at the Casa as well about, being part of one family. And it's coming up more and more now. That's why I was called to do these podcasts and to connect us all. Going into this world, 2025 seems to be this watershed year where there seems to be a lot of chaos, but we're holding this highest of energy that we learned here and we uncovered here. We were born with the divine spark within us, and it was reignited here in the Casa. And it never is going away. We're eternal travelers on the path. We're eternal beings and spiritual beings having a human experience. So
I think what's really precious for people like me, because as I say, I used to be an intellectual. I wasn't into energetics or new age stuff. But stepping into the streets of Abadiane, even the very first moment I arrived with this big suitcase, feeling, a little bit kind of bedraggled and so forth after. Oh, because that's the other thing, there was a strike. I'd taken off on a plane and there was a plane strike in one of those big cities, and I spoke not a word of the language. And I was very scared, to be honest. I was quite scared. What do I do now? Where do I have to go? There was a big sort of hustly bustly thing in this airport. Nobody knew where to go. And a young Brazilian businessman started to talk to me in English, and he said, I will get you to Brasilia. Don't worry. And he got me food, he got me drink, he got me on the right plane because I didn't know where to go. And when we got to Abadiane, his mother showed up in an open-top Mercedes with big red lips, this lovely, how a bit Marilyn Monroe-ish. And he says, oh, this is my mother. And he says to his mother, we have to take her and find her an honest, good posada for the night. And then I will come back tomorrow, pick you up, take you for breakfast, and get you on the right bus for... He'd never heard of Abadiane, but this is how the entities work. They're going to use, oh my God, because it was on my own, it would have been quite horrible and scary and all the rest of it. This man was like what I call a Holy Spirit figure. He came in and he was totally without any agenda of any kind. He just said, I will make sure you get that bus.
Yes, there's angels everywhere. Everywhere we go. And there's a magnetic field around us as well, whether we realize it or not, because of the protection that we have. And we have nothing to fear, but we always forget all this stuff. And then the right person always comes along at the right time, and we're always in the right place at the right time. And there are no coincidences and no accidents. So we need to trust and let God be God and hand everything over to the divine power, especially if we are feel we are lost like you are, or we feel,
vulnerable, very vulnerable.
Yes, and what's our next step, and protect me. And there's a fear factor as well, but we're only human and we should never give each other a hard time or give ourselves a hard time, because we are doing the best we can. And what could possibly go wrong? I mean, it's all in divine order. Everything is divinely, God's plan is perfect. We're just trying to mess it up or trying to find holes in it and think we're not loved or we're not worthy. I mean, that's probably
the worthiness thing is a big one.
Yeah, I think that's Catholic Irish guilt we've got there, which we spend our lives
but not only, because I worked, when I was a therapist, I was working with people from all different religions, but religion would be the one where they were so conditioned to think there's something wrong with me. I came into the world with something wrong. But the Catholic one, you're right that the Catholic one is more exacerbated, because they do. When I was about 5 with my grandmother in the Catholic Church, it was tapping, saying, "'Tis my fault, 'tis my fault." As a previous fault. And, the 5-year-old kid's thinking, oh, well, I'll just do this because I'm going to get an ice cream afterwards. But it actually must affect the psyche, I reckon, to be told that there's something fundamentally wrong with us before we've even, started school.
Yeah, and I think religion is very dangerous also, because it's dogma, and it's a set belief system, and that's the beauty of the Casa de Dom Ignacio. And I remember that distinctly and I didn't speak any Portuguese when I came here with my sister 22 years ago now. All creeds, all belief systems, everyone was welcomed into the Casa, and in particular those without belief. I think that's why the medium came out in Entity and did physical interventions, cutting people to show those non-believers that there was a God that was doing this work. It was not the human element. You know, we're just human beings, but God is all-encompassing and can do all of the impossible, like Saint Rita, the saint of the impossible, who I love.
Yeah,
You
and we
know,
know
so
so little about what's beyond the five senses. I see that even now every day. I read things or I'm reading the course and working with people and I hear things and I think, my God, we know like that much, not even the tip of an iceberg. And all the rest is so mystical and beautiful. And we have to learn to be humble to say, of course I don't know. I can only know what's in my face and trust it. Trust was a huge one for me, with the miracles at the Casa Abadiania, because of that thing about the exema where I thought, oh, I'll never be able to work again. You know, I'll never go anywhere. I'm going to hide away. And to doubt the work, and then to see that gradually it was like a flower coming and blooming,
oh, it's
you know.
lovely.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, it was so moving actually. And those French people that used to get me the water, you know, they'd say, oh, it's getting better. I can see
I
it's getting
know,
better.
and they loved you. And, you
Yes,
know, you're
yes.
still here on the planet and you're still doing the work of God, if you like, you know. So it multiplied your faith, which was a beautiful thing. And also, the memories are always there. And you're still working with people and fulfilling your mission. And you're right, we know nothing really. You know, we think we've climbed the mountain and then we just, you know, there's another massive one behind it. We just don't know the great mysteries of the divine plan. So the surrendering is so important. And that's what we really had to work on here in Abidjania, sitting in the current for 4 to 5 hours at a time, thinking,
Oh
when
my
is the
God, that
torture
used to
going
be
to be
so.
over? Um,
Oh, and I would love to just, I'm going to interrupt you because I wanted to just
oh,
say that I
please
thought
do.
of it this morning. One of, I think maybe perhaps the most important um, experience I had at the Casa, where I really felt everything we're saying, was when you were doing the current in the first current room. And I'd come in and I'd think, oh, I don't want to go. Oh, I wish I had a donut. And yeah. And I'd try to sit down and settle. And I was very, very resistant because it wasn't my nature to be all holier than thou at all. And you would start, you know, the things you used to say in the first current room. And it was, I wish I could say this better, but it was like your whole being, texture of your whole being, body, soul, mind, had this flavor of absolute devotion and love. And that's what I honestly, yeah, no, truly, there was something about that where I just looked with admiration and thought, well, I'll never be like that, but never mind, that's what it's about.
I know,
And then you'd be in the cafe roaring with laughter with things sticking up on your head, you
I
know?
know, and blinky blinkies and angel wings and
Amazing.
being very irreverently reverent about
To show
God.
that, you know, our mind or our heart has got all these facets that are so amazing. You know, the
Yes,
humor and then the devotion and
and
so you
I never thought in all my life, somebody told me 23 years ago that I would be praying in Abidjania and helping people, you know, fulfill their missions as I was fulfilling mine and still am. I would just laugh in their face and told them they were mad. But it didn't, it came through me. It didn't, I surrendered into it. It was not something that I suddenly found what I was looking for. I found God, who is the sacred trinity of innumerable names. It's not a Catholic God or a Muslim God it's the God of everyone and everything. And
It's
all
love,
creation.
isn't it? Absolute love.
It's just God is love. And I learned all of this, it unfolded for me, and people used to be saying, "Oh, we want to get into your current room." I said, "It's not my current room. It's the Casa Universal House of Love, and we're all working together. I'm just part of your guidance, and it's not coming from me. It's coming from God." And it was very humbling because I started in the ego because I was a performer before and I did comedy and I was always on stage and I was always a class clown. So it started as a performance, really. And it was in the head. We have to move from the head to the heart. It might be only 13 inches or so, but it's the journey of our lives, all of our lives, right through reincarnation as well. So to move from the head to the heart is the journey. So I was gradually down. I'm nearly in the heart at the moment. I'm pretty much getting there. I mean, there's days when I feel crazed, but that's the journey into the heart, into love, to move out of the ego. So I gradually started feeling it and crying as I was praying. I mean, there were tears coming out of my eyes, the tears of Christ, the Lacrimas de Cristo, the tears of Dom Ignacio, and tears are 1% water and 99% emotion. So I was actually feeling it. And, call it what you like. It was almost like I was a warrior on the battlefield of life. And I was just guiding my fellow soldiers through the battles that we were on earth, and prayer was the key to God's heart, and we were asking for help, and as we ask we receive. So I was just with all of you. I just happened to be the one that was speaking. I always said the words that came through me, and everybody always said, and they were from all different walks of life afterwards, they were exactly what they needed to hear at that time.
Exactly.
And I mean, there were people from all over the world, and I kept saying, "It's not me, it's God who's doing it." And they were like, "Yeah, but you said yes," like John of God, also, who said yes to his mission.
Yes,
If
yes,
he
yes,
hadn't have said yes, then we would
yes.
not have grown in this beautiful high vibration together.
That's lovely because you've managed to put into words what I couldn't quite say, which was it felt, when I think of it now, you were there and you had totally surrendered every part of your human person in those moments to let it come through you like a vessel, you know? That
Yeah,
was what the
if
difference
anyone,
was.
if I can do that, because I'm batshit nuts, um, and I am a very, resistant person in general, and I was very anti-church, anti this, anti that, because of the abuse in Ireland and all of the, just the whole anti-God. So if I could do that, then there is hope for the universe. If I could be a creature of God and do the work of God, then anyone can do it. And I mean that from my heart, because I'm the most
Yeah.
unlikely.
It's
As you were saying,
palpable.
yeah, me running around like a lunatic in the cafe, telling God jokes and, you know, pretty heavy Jesus jokes as well. And I really love Jesus. I mean, he's really becomes such a part of my life. And I never thought he would say that. It's like I'm a Jesus maniac. I even have all the t-shirts. So people think that's me being funny, but I'm actually very close to the Christ consciousness, which is love.
Yes,
So
yes.
and I also have respect for everybody else's belief systems, no matter where. A beautiful friend of mine just arrived this week from Turkey with her Muslim neighbor, and he's seeking healing. And we had a wonderful conversation the other night about religion really
Oh,
doesn't matter. And it's just about, loving each other, basically, and being in that vibration of God is love, no matter what religion we are, and just sitting and being in that vibration of love, and to be loved and to love is what we are here to do. And it's easier said than done, because so
and
many
that's where
people,
the Casa is precious in my view, is that people come like me who had no expectations really. I just knew I had to go, that was all. But it's to see that we can receive all the doctrines, read all the books, be told in the church all this stuff, but it's actually nothing if it's not if it's not experiential. But very gradually in Abadiania, I started to have that happen, to feel. I remember I had an operation, a non-physical operation, and I was in my room for 24 hours or whatever, and I was listening to, there was a little CD they sold at the time of the music of St. Francis of Assisi, actually.
So
And I'd got this little CD and I spent 24 hours in some, that was another miracle. I had nowhere to stay at for some reason. And this woman who I didn't even, had never spoken to, I was saying, I need to find somewhere to stay. And she said, I'll give you my house. And I was there for 3 months. And I was in this house, in this room. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, that nothing was happening, not much, nothing going on. And I'm a very social type normally. But I was listening to this music and I got that actual experience of feeling that love here, just gradually permeating out, which I have never got anywhere else. But I've had it since when I've gone to the holy sites like Montserrat or in France, some of the places, the mystical sites. It's like the entities pop in and they help it to rekindle.
wow.
Or even in my room, because you gave me a little tiny angel when I saw you the other day. And
Yeah.
I stuck it, for some reason, I stuck it up on the wall in the corner. And then I started to notice that I felt this energy from that little thing in the corner on the wall.
The crystal.
And I mean, as you say, 30 years ago, I'd have thought, oh, go get over yourself. But it's the actual experience that makes all the difference. And I
Yes,
think the
living
Casa
it.
is somewhere like the Casa because we see things we just never imagined.
Yeah, and living in it, living in that vibration of love and having to keep remembering that we are on a journey on the earth and that we're all going to pass on, whatever way that's going to happen, be aware, be ready. I know it sounds, don't wait up, we don't know when we're going to pass over to the other side, but we will be called. And
But we'll all be together.
yeah, we'll all be together, and we're
Believe that.
together as we are. At nighttime when we go to sleep, we have mini deaths because we're not conscious. So it'll just be going into a state of unconsciousness and not waking up. So we will be in
Yeah.
that dimension of love and home again together, from where we came from, and we just go back home. And it's just fleeting life, I mean, I never thought I'd make it past 40. I mean, my lifestyle was so, drugs, rock and roll, alcohol, taking terrible risks. When I think about it now, my life has completely gone 360. I never thought I'd be
Mm,
talking about
mm.
prayer and love with you,
That's
my
it.
beautiful
Yeah.
friend. And I'm so grateful, and this is gratitude is a magnet for miracles. So grateful for another day on the planet. And also so grateful to have met you in this lifetime and to have reconnected with you just recently. It is so special. And I can't
Mhm.
even, we've talked about this together privately, but just so that people out there listening will know, it is such a strong connection, and everybody has it. We just were so aware of it when we met. It was just like we'd never been apart and we have always been together. And I'm looking forward to our next meeting, which will be soon enough, and
Yeah.
we just pick up where we left off. I mean, we're now connected again, and you're never out of my energy field. So, this is the beauty of the awakening that we experience at the Casa. And going
Oh
forward,
my
we're
God.
not
Yeah.
alone. We are together, one family, and together we will conquer the world as we know it, and we will bring the peace to everyone that we can, and we will find the peace beyond all understanding. Uh, if not in this lifetime, then certainly when we go back home. And if we decide to reincarnate again, I want to go to a planet where there's chocolate. And, you
Did you
know,
say chocolate?
yeah, you can come with me.
I
Um,
will. And Guinness. Guinness and chocolate. I'm there.
yeah, well, yeah, the Guinness I kind of left behind because well, I had my lifetimes with it, so I guess. But yeah, it's all good. Whatever will happen will happen. If we
Yeah, because I went through a patch last week actually where I was feeling a bit discombobulated because I'm leaving Ireland. I don't know if I will come back and this and that. I don't have a home. I've been a nomad for years now. And I got a bit kind of anxious around it. Where was I going with that? Um, oh yeah, to just this thing about prayer that's become now something like I don't say a prayer for, but I commune with the entities, I commune with some of the saints, and I commune with God, and I read the Course in Miracles, which is full of this beautiful vibration. And I saw the bottom line is I don't want anything in form, but I just commune with God for use me, because however I get used in a loving service anywhere, this is quite new for me compared to the old Tricia, It's like as long as it's loving service anywhere with even one or two true companions who are kind of on the same wavelength, there's nothing else to ask for anymore.
exactly.
Even the timeline, it's now the Holy Spirit's timeline. I just say, okay, you show me, and I'm on it.
That's a beautiful thing. Thank you for reminding us of that because
All
that's what
right.
it is. We are in service and in love, and also it's not about time or place. God is
Not because
everywhere in everything.
another thing I just like to say is that I was 77 the other day, and I was thinking about that day I came to see you in Dublin, and I told you, because it was true, it was absolutely pissing with rain, it was very cold, it was windy, and I had to walk a mile and a half up to catch the early train in the village here.
Yeah,
And I was like a child. I was like Peter Pan. It was almost like I'd flown there because I was so
levitating.
clear about the purpose and the love. And I love to bring that in because this is a course teaching that, we have such capacity to not let the body fetter us. We have such capacity to go and do, you know, to I would have run up to the station at 5 o'clock in the morning because it was my heart that wanted that so much. And it's lovely to see that the more we let go of beliefs about the limits of the body or age or the timeline, even food and drink, when the heart, those experiences were quite apparent in Abadiania as well, because sometimes, as you say, we'd spend 4 hours in the current and it's like, oh, the hunger thing doesn't really happen. Thirst.
Yeah, and we
It's
were
beyond the
students.
body. It's beyond the body because it's almost like if I drew a picture of the heart, the true heart, not the muscle, but the Anamkara that you mentioned,
Yes.
it's the size of Everest and the body is like a tiny speck of dust. You actually
Thank
switch
you.
it round,
Yeah,
Or I do.
thank you. No, this is beautiful reminder. And Abidjan, most people who I have talked to about it, and that's a lot of people all from all over the world, it always comes back to the heart energy. The Casa is in the heart of Brazil, and
Yeah,
we are
yeah.
part of the heart energy. And this is what the Casa teaching has been for all of us. And we are carrying this forward into a world that needs the heart energy. So this
Mm,
is a beautiful
mm.
way to conclude because
Yes.
we could talk forever. I mean, I could talk to you forever, but this
Ah,
is a beautiful way for us to conclude this podcast because people have things to do as well. And
it's
also
both.
just to be able to talk to you about this and share it with everybody. It's about love and the heart energy. So it's a perfect way to wind up our gorgeous conversation. And if it just helps people to remind them that we're not alone and that we're all in this together and to reach out to each other and help love and service, Domingo. So
And
thank
to
you,
trust,
Tricia.
trust, trust, trust.
Trust, have faith, believe
Yeah.
the power of the Trinity, the triangle, the sacred Trinity of innumerable names, God, consciousness. So thank you, Tricia, and
Oh, bless
see you
you.
soon.
I love you so much.
I know, and big hearts, and always and forever, you know, we're eternal. There is no separation, you know, only love. Love you, darling.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
See you soon.
And see you very soon, actually.
Yeah.
Sooner than
Woo.
you think.